At 2 a.m. on a rainy night in London, police dispatch lines began ringing without pause. Across the city, multiple completely unrelated families were calling in to report people missing. Initially treated as routine disappearances, the reality surfaced when the first body was discovered inside an abandoned factory. The victim was tied to a chair. Carved into their face was a wide, forced smile. This timeline maps out what followed. Over the next 11 years, 27 data points populate this graph, representing 27 victims of the smile killer. Yet investigators found no DNA, no CCTV, and no witnesses. The killer left clean scenes, paralyzing the UK with fear. The manhunt eventually ended quietly. Police surrounded an isolated farmhouse outside the city. Inside, they found a man named Adrian Cross sitting perfectly calm, waiting for them. During his trial, Cross offered a clear motive for the murders. He stated that he wanted to inflict on the world the exact same pain he was forced to endure throughout his childhood. His confession forces a difficult question. When we look at a killer capable of 27 murders, we have to ask if they were born with an inherent defect or if the conditions of their life methodically built them into what they became. Stripping away the tabloid mythology of the smile killer reveals a completely standard medical baseline. Adrian Cross was born without any diagnosed biological or neurological abnormalities. The abnormalities were all in his environment. He grew up trapped in a house with an alcoholic, frequently violent father, and a mother struggling with untreated mental illness. For a developing child, daily fear and physical abuse were his baseline reality. School offered no escape. Instead of a safe haven, it became a secondary site of torment. He faced severe bullying from his peers, resulting in absolute social isolation. The combination of abuse at home and complete exile at school forged a deeply cynical worldview. He became convinced that all human connection was a lie, and that the happiness he saw in others was entirely fake. When a child's mind is totally deprived of safety and empathy from both adults and peers, it creates a psychological vacuum. It leaves a developing mind without a framework for connection, waiting for something else to fill the void. At 16 years old, Adrian Cross began seeking a sense of control through violence. He turned to animal cruelty, starting with rats and moving on to dogs, finding that inflicting pain provided a temporary relief from his own internal suffering. That pattern of behavior became highly lethal when Cross entered adulthood and secured a job in a medical testing laboratory. Working in the lab gave him practical, unrestricted access to specialized chemicals and sedatives. He spent his days studying human anatomy and mastering how different drugs affected the body. He applied this knowledge to a highly calculated targeting strategy. Cross actively selected victims society often overlooks: homeless individuals and late-night shift workers. He knew their disappearances would take days, sometimes weeks, to generate a police response. His methodology for the actual kidnappings was incredibly strict. He wore surgical gloves at all times, mapped out his routes to avoid municipal CCTV cameras, and used clinical-grade chemicals to completely sanitize his secret basement and every secondary crime scene. Untreated psychological darkness, when paired with high-level clinical access, transformed an isolated outcast into an apex predator. He now possessed the exact technical means required to act on his darkest impulses without detection. His streak ended in his 11th year, when he kidnapped a young woman named Emma. Cross made a rare, critical error in calculating her body weight, administering an inadequate dosage of his usual sedative. Emma didn't fully lose consciousness. While pretending to be asleep in his basement, she noticed a small, hidden camera mounted in the corner of the room. The moment Cross went upstairs, Emma managed to cut through her restraints. She sprinted out of the basement and ran directly to the authorities, providing police with their very first concrete description of the killer. 11 years of careful planning, chemical cleaning, and strict routines unraveled because of a simple mathematical error with a syringe. Following his arrest, investigators finally had the opportunity to ask Cross about his forensic signature, the reason he took the time to force a smile onto the faces of 27 victims. Cross explained that the carved smiles were a physical manifestation of his own life. They represented the fake, happy mask he felt society forced him to wear every day, while he suffered in silence as a child. Adrian Cross received a life sentence and will die in a high-security prison. The legal case is closed, but the implications of his confession remain open. The facts of his life suggest he wasn't dropped from the sky as a monster. He was methodically built into one by a broken home and the collective apathy of everyone who looked the other way while a child.